Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to this ABB Tech Talk on GE Drives Preventative Maintenance Kits and Service for the DC300, DC2000. We appreciate you being with us today. My name is Chris Powell with ABB Marketing. Our main presenter is Steve Haynes, again with that GE Drives expert group that I mentioned. And so at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Steve.
I was part of the GE team when it was acquired by ABB. So many of us on this call have kind of lived through a lot of these products. In this case, the DC300, DC2000, pretty much the complete life cycle. You also have Bob Hunter on, who has performed field service on this equipment for many, many years. So I think if you have questions, we should be able to address them here. If we can't, we'll get back to you. But again, very experienced team on here dealing with this offering. So Chris, give us the next slide. So what I wanted to do is just kind of give you, and some of this is review and maybe even stuff you already know, but GE introduced the DC300 drive in about 1983. It was declared obsolete in 2000. So most DC300s have been in service for 20, 30 years. The DC2000, which was kind of the successor to the DC300, came into production in about 1992. So again, most of those drives have been in service for 20 plus years, officially declared obsolete by GE in 2005. So we as GE are providing life cycle services to support these two product lines, and we have continued that support since ABB acquired us. So again, same team dealing with these legacy GE products. DC300s and 2000s are found in just about every industry out there. I think today we're primarily talking to paper customers, but these drives are found in metals, material handling, mining, rubber and plastic, you name it, it's out there. And you'll also see these drives in both system and standalone applications. So again, a large installed base of this equipment still out there, still running, still viable. And again, as ABB, we intend to support that equipment for as long as we can. Next, Chris.
This is our first poll question for you. Very simple. Just how long do you plan to keep your GE drives in service? 1 year, 2 to 5 years, 6 to 10 years, or unknown? And so here we have our results. So 0% within a year, 5% within 2 to 5 years, 26% within 6 to 10, and 53 unknown. Okay, so some unknowns out there. Okay, that's good to know. All right. Now on to your next slide, Steve.
This is a very interesting slide in that it kind of portrays the history of our group, again, as GE, and then transitioning into ABB. And you can kind of see where the DC300 and DC2000 kind of fit into the timeline. Unfortunately, I can say that I probably lived through every one of these products and all of these transitions. So again, just gives you some idea where these products fit in. DC300 was actually interesting in that it started its life in our factory in Erie, Pennsylvania. And then when that plant was closed, it actually transitioned over to Salem, Virginia, and then the DC2000, the AC2000 product lines were pretty much always manufactured in Salem. So again, just kind of an interesting chart that gives you some perspective on where these products came in. Chris, next one. And just some data on the drives, and kind of reiterates the DC300 was designed in Erie, Pennsylvania, came to Salem in the 90s. The DC2000 started in the early 1990s. And there's a couple of other drives down there that we don't necessarily need to even talk about. The DC1000, which was a variation of the DC2000. There's not too many of them out there. And then there was a DV300, which was a fairly short-lived product. But when you get to the DC300, DC2000, lots of installed base still out there today. We had actually envisioned that our time horizon to support these products was going to be through about 2016, and it's now 2020 and we're still going. So again, these are pretty aged products, and again, we're doing our best to provide field support, parts support for these products. Chris, next. Kind of give you an idea where we are on both products today. And I think I said earlier that DC2000 was declared obsolete by GE in 2005. We still have repaired and remanufactured cards available. We are making new power supply cards. That power supplies were redesigned and can be manufactured new today. The PL cables are new. We still have good access to new SCRs, and we can refurbish the cell stacks. It's not uncommon in a paper mill that the cell stacks will become pitted due to the environment, and we have the ability to take those back into our Louisville shop, machine them, clean them up, put new hardware on them, new SCRs, and send them back like new. Kind of a very new thing is we're now actually able to apply the ABB DCS 880 digital drive electronics to DC2000. We actually have an order going through as we speak to put the ABB DC drive electronics on a J-frame DC2000. It's rated 2,000 horse. And I think I should mention up under the PL cables, we do have the new design 2PL available, which is probably one of the most common issues with DC2000s is the 2PL, which is a power supply cable. And there is a new design for that cable. We've been selling it for a few years, but again, it's still available. And actually say that it's included in the preventative maintenance kits. 300, very similar. It was obsoleted in the year 2000. We still can repair and remanufacture the circuit cards. The cables are available. Again, SCRs and cell stacks can be refurbished. And although we have not done a DCS 880 digital front end upgrade for a DC300, there's no reason that could not be done. So hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of where we are on both of these products today. And again, as Chris said, if you have questions, please, you can do them now, or we will have an opportunity at the end of the presentation. And for the rest of the ABB guys, if you if I miss something, please jump in and put your inputs in. So, Chris, next.
All right, this is our next poll question, another simple one. Are you planning to upgrade your GE drives within the next year, within 2 to 5 years, within 6 to 10 years, or you have no plans? And results here, within 1 year, 6%, 2 to 5 years, 41%, 6 to 10 years, 18%, no plans, 24%. So a good portion within 2 to 5 years. Okay, great. Okay, there you go.
Okay. These are some general guidelines for PM, and these kind of mostly come out of our parts group and our field services group. Recommendations are to refurbish power supply cards every 8 years. The goal there is, the main goal is to replace the electrolytic capacitors. And, what we see with age and the electrolytics start to fail, the power supply ripple increases, and you can see some fairly unpredictable results from the drives. Could show up as nuisance tripping, could show up as performance problems, but again, we recommend those power supply cards be replaced or refurbished every 8 years. In general, ribbon cables, again, every 8 years. Electromechanical relays, 10 years. And fans and blower motors, mainly bearing failures, about every 10 years. And it's optional in our PM kits, but SCR assemblies about every 15 years. Again, we take those in, we replace the SCRs, we recondition the heat sinks, and then replace the hardware that provides the tension on the SCRs. So again, just very general guidelines. I'm sure you see perhaps different things in your mills, but again, this is kind of what we in general see. Next, Chris. What I put in here, we offer both these PM parts kits, and they can be purchased with services or without. But our field engineers do a pretty good job at doing PMs, and I kind of put just a sample PM up here of some of the things we go through in these drives. So again, this is kind of an optional service. The PM kits can be purchased as just parts, or they can be parts and labor. Really your choice. And again, this checklist was developed by some of our very experienced field engineers who've serviced these drives for years and years and years. So, Chris, next. I think I said this earlier, that our kit is based on inputs from our field service engineers that service the DC300, DC2000 equipment on a regular basis. In general, again, going back to the general guidelines we threw out slide or two earlier, we like to replace the power supply boards. Again, we're trying to get new electrolytic capacitors in there. We replace the ribbon cables, again looking for minimizing intermittent connections. And most of you that have DC2000s know about the 2PL cable and how periodically that cable requires some maintenance to maintain the 5-volt power supply through the drive. We replace electromechanical relays, and we're trying to get fans and blowers replaced in the PM kits too. And again, our field engineers are available to help with installation of the components, or you can do it yourself with your own internal resources. But again, our services are available to to help install these items. Next, Chris.
Hey, Steve, let me stop you there.
Yeah.
We've got a couple questions that came
Oh,
in. The first one,
okay.
first one is, would the ACS 880 BCU replace the UC?
The ACS 880. Read it again. I'm sorry, Chris.
Would the ACS 880 BCU replace the UC?
I'm going to say right offhand, no. I think when you say UC, I'm assuming you're talking about the UC2000 master control, or otherwise known as Innovation Series control. What we have been working on in ABB is to use the 800M controller as a replacement for the UC. And ABB has actually developed, or in the process of developing, a DLAN plus interface from the 800M controller, so we can speak directly with DC2000 drives. It doesn't help you a lot with DC300 because most of those are DLAN minus LANs, but again, it looks like the 800M controller, it will be the UC2000 replacement. So I hope I got the question right.
Okay, I will send that individual a note just to make sure we did.
Yeah.
Our next question is, what parts does the DCS 880 digital front end kit replace?
Okay. It replaces pretty much all of the electronics that you find on the front of the DC2000s. The main control card, it replaces the power supply card, it replaces the power connect card, and at that point you would have a new LAN, based on the offerings from ABB. It does not replace, of course, the SCRs, um, the contactors, whether they be AC or DC. The fuses stay. Say the power components of the DC2000 would stay behind with completely new field supply. Comes with the DCS 880 also. So again, if you can check and make sure I fully answered the question, hopefully I got it.
Okay, I will do that. And we do have another one that just came in. Does the 800M controller talk to the BEM card? And does ABB now own the BEM card?
Okay, I think that's reference to the BEM 763 or 764, which were primarily used with the 9070 PLC product line, and provided us DLAN interfaces. That card has long ago been obsoleted. It was actually owned by the GE Fanuc organization. Most of the support for 9070 products has been shifted over to Simtech. So I would say that ABB does not own the BEM 763 or 764, but again, we've been developing interfaces from the 800M to DLAN plus, at least so far. We've not done anything with DLAN minus yet. We have looked at hybrid solutions where we might use an 800M and then use an Innovation Series controller or a 9070 PLC with a BEM card to be the interface to the drives. We view those as somewhat temporary interfaces, meaning as you transition the drives to something else, eventually the need for that box in the middle, if you will, would go away. Again, Chris, I hope I got it.
I think so. Actually, it responded the UC2000 interface to the BEM card, which I was told was owned by GE Industrial Services.
I'll have to check on. No, I don't think we own the BEM card. The interface, I would say yes. The hardware, no. And I will say there are very few of these BEM cards around anymore. I did just recently find 5 of them, which we've of the BEM 763s that which we put away for safekeeping, but there are not very many of these 763, 764 cards available anymore.
Okay, thank you. I have some more here for you. Is there a
Oh, boy.
prepackaged engineered DCS 880 front end replacement, or is it engineered job by job?
I would say right now it is engineered job by job. We are currently doing a J-frame DC2000. Once we get that one done, that would of course then be a standard. So as we do the different frame sizes, they would become, let's call them kits. Right now they're engineered, and the main issue is not the electronics, but the packaging. We're for the DC2000 J frame, it's a very thin, not a very deep space. So we have to repackage the DCS 880 electronics to fit on a J frame. So again, most of it's not redesigning the firmware, the software, the cards. It's more how do we package it to fit on these GE legacy drives.
All right, and the last one here is, are 2 PL cables included in the kit?
Yes, they are. And in the case of the DC2000, the newest design 2PL is what we include. That 2PL cable was redesigned a few years ago at the request of a customer, and greatly improves the performance of that cable. We got rid of the insulation displacement connectors, which had a tendency with time and vibration to become intermittent. We've gone to crimp type connectors, and also we increased the pressure in the connector on the pins, the card pins. So it's the short answer is yes, it's in the kit. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Steve. And now for our next polling question, what time of year is your scheduled maintenance outage or outages? And they're by quarter there, so we'll go ahead and open the poll. So 13% January through March, 50% April through June, 0% July through September, 13% October through December. Okay, good information. All right, back to you, Steve.
All right. The rest of the presentation is really just some photographs, and these are a couple examples of DC300s. Those of you that have them will recognize these right away. One of the things, we'll get to this a little later, that we like to have to quote these PM kits is some of the nameplate data. And so I was kind of showing where that is. It's usually right on the front of the drive. But anyway, that's DC300, a little one and a big one. Next, Chris. Then we just kind of started showing you where, the power supply board is behind the main control card. Again, we're going to provide a new power supply board with new capacitors on it, replace ribbon cables, which are generally the cables that connect the cards together, and then electromechanical relays. You can kind of see where they are at the bottom of the drive. Next, Chris. Kind of same thing for the DC2000, kind of a small one, a G frame and a J frame. We just talked about the digital front end. We're putting on a J frame, and you can see the cards are in that box on the front of the drive. Again, very not a lot of depth there. So it's really a mechanical repackaging job to put the new ABB electronics in that space. I guess that G frame on the left side of the page, it actually was hard for me. I actually installed and commissioned that drive years ago, and it was headed to the trash can. So I saved it. But so some of the stuff I originally put in is now coming out of service. So next. And, just kind of showing you, the ribbon cables in the drive. The main control card is always on the front. That's one of the older vintages. There were 3 vintages of DC2000 cards. And that's one of the older vintages there. Next, Chris. The power supply card, when I've kind of circled the electrolytic capacitors, again, with age, those are going to increase your power supply ripple and cause all kinds of problems with the drive. There's a number of relays that are on the DC2000. Some of the cards on the bottom of the drive were optional. So in some cases, you'll have these cards, and others you will not. Next.
All right, and that concludes our presentation, Steve's presentation. So we'll just open it back up for more questions.
I have to say the questions have been very good, by the way. And if we don't fully get those questions answered today, I would say either talk to your local ABB sales rep, or you can get in touch with us. But again, very good probing questions. I think what you'll find is ABB's kind of embraced the GE legacy drives to, one, support them here for a little while, and to also provide upgrade solutions for the controls and the drives. So again, love to answer more questions and maybe get the rest of the ABB team involved in answering questions.
Yeah, we did get an inquiry for more information on the DCS 880 front end.
Okay.
Oh, here we go. Well, this is a long one. Do you have an order of magnitude price comparison between the rebuild kits versus the DCS 880 retrofit? I realize there's more engineering involved in the retrofit, but it may buy me another 20 years.
Yeah, I think that's a fair question. That, yeah, a rebuild kit is going to buy you more time for sure. I'm trying to think. The rebuild kit is definitely more expensive because there's more engineering labor, commissioning, etc. involved in that. I'm going to say, I'm going to go back to my J frame that we're working on presently and say rebuild kit might be 4 or 5 times the parts. parts kit. It's a lot of difference. Okay. So Chris, hopefully I got that one. We could get more specific if we know what size drive we're dealing with. And again, I think the rebuild kits will come down as we get the standards built. But like I say, we're really working on the first one as we speak.
Just got one that came in. You mentioned the DLAN Plus interface with the AC800M. What is the timeline to full release?
It has been tested. It does work. There is some further refinement going on, and we're probably going to have to get back with them on the final release. I do not know the date. I know it's fairly far down the road in the development cycle, and again, it's been tested. It works. I think we'll have to follow up with Taro to see what a release date would be. We have proposed it to a couple of customers already, some fairly large DC2000 systems. But let's follow up with Taro and get an official answer.
All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Have a great rest of your day and a great weekend coming up. Thanks for being with us. Good day.